This is the Conscious Economics Podcast. Your co-hosts are two women who found themselves in careers on Bay Street, but decided that there was something missing. So here we are. I'm Rhiannon Roseland. I'm your co-host and the CEO of the Economic Club of Canada. I'm also the co-founder of Conscious Economics.
Hi, I'm Asil, the CEO of Conscious Economics and a financial therapist.
Now, we call ourselves economic healers, and that is a term that I'm sure nobody has heard before, but we really believe that if we want to heal our systems and create a more equitable society, it starts with actually healing our relationship with money and the economy.
When you join us on this podcast, you'll be exposed to courageous conversations that help us examine, heal, and redefine the relationship we have with money. Join us on this journey as we co-create the new economy together.
Everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Conscious Economics Podcast. And again, I'm joined by our original co-host, Asil. She's back for another episode, activating our profit pillar. So excited because I get to just learn. So I'm buckling up my seatbelt. Hi, Asil.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very much excited to be here, and I missed you dearly.
I missed you. I'm so glad that you're here.
Yes.
So what special topic do you have in store for us today?
Well, this is the new year. So people tend to actually not just reflect on the year that passed, but also set new goals for the new year. And generally speaking, whether you're reflecting or setting new goals, anxiety is off the roof for most people. So I thought,
I love how she said, new year, anxiety is off the roof. Okay, yes, that is true.
But it's true.
But it is in January.
Yeah.
Isn't there the Blue Monday? It's like January 21st or like the third Monday of January. They call it Blue Monday because it's actually the most depressing day of the year. And the reason why it is because most credit card statements from the holidays come around that time. So you're opening the statements from all the bonanza that you just went through and put usually on your credit card. And now you're opening it and it's like dark outside and it's winter and there's still a lot ahead and it's hard.
Yes.
So, and like not to belittle it at all. So it is a very anxious time. And what do you have to say about that now?
Well, just to break it down, let's discuss the first part of this episode. Let's talk more about our experiences around anxiety and some of the societal pressures around this time of the year. And then the second portion, we'll dedicate it to discuss some goal-setting strategies that I've prepared some notes to share with you. But the first part is going to be more conversational about like some of these things you already brought up. So you're right. A lot of people feel a lot of pressure that I even did a quick poll on my LinkedIn to see, do people like really stick to a budget, or do they just buy presents and deal with the consequences later, or like how do they go about managing this time? And most people actually said, well, buy the gifts and deal with the consequences later. And I wasn't surprised. I was actually expecting it, but I just wanted to validate that truly the case. So for the first time ever, even me, I've done an Excel sheet called the holiday shopping for the first time in my life, and I put all the names of the people and I literally put a number like based on the amount I think like the budget I have for that person. And it was the first time ever I looked at the number of the accumulative amount and I said, whoa, this was like illuminating. I never ever done that. This is a significant dent if you're not budgeting for it.
Well, and this is why for me, I have a lot of wounds around holidays, and in particular the holiday around this time of year. Like it's different for everyone, but generally speaking, that kind of, Christmas, festive, it's really a consumer driven holiday in Western culture now. And there's this expectation that everybody buy all these gifts and do all these exchanges. And a lot of the times for, young children, it's all around presents. And we've kind of gotten lost in the whole thing. And for me growing up, it was a really difficult time because there wasn't a lot of money. And I remember feeling sometimes shame around what I got at Christmas as compared to someone else. And I didn't know where to put that as a young child. I didn't know who to talk to about it or whatever else. And so I really tense up during this time of year because of that old past feeling. And I do have this crazy perfectionist expectation I put on myself to find the perfect gift for people, to like not forget anything, to do all of the things. And it stresses me out so badly that, generally speaking, over the years, I would be overeating during the holidays, usually before I quit drinking, over drinking, overspending, numbing and exhausted by the time I came back in January, not actually fulfilled, and also being sloppy with my energy. So just like going to all of these events just because, even if it didn't feel good.
Yes.
And that includes sometimes extended family. Like not everybody, has great relationships all around across the board, but we're all expected to just like suck it all up into this weird thing. And I think we've lost a lot of the essence of what is the origin and history of some of these, holidays, and how could we get back to something that feels more conscious.
I love a lot of what you said, and it has a lot of nuggets in it. So I want to address everything. So I hope I don't miss anything. One of the first things that stood out for me is the impact your childhood experiences have on your present situation. And it's always very interesting for me in our human dynamic, because like you can see somebody in their 50s, for example, still impacted by something that happened to him when he was like 5 years old.
Yeah.
But these wounds don't leave us. So it's really important for us to reflect, what kind of holidays experiences did we grow up with? What was the cultural messaging around gifting, but not just so much cultural, but also in your own household, and all these different layers? And how did you deal with it? For us, one of the things because I grew up in a Muslim family, we did celebrate Christmas because I'm from Lebanon. We celebrate everything really. So I did celebrate Christmas, but the Muslim traditions or the Muslim holidays, we don't do gifts, we do money. So you actually get money from your relatives.
Okay.
And the gift, you can sometimes guess how much it costs,
sure,
but you can't guess
no.
what a $5 bill is.
The Barbie and her head falls off like after you open the package. That was like pretty classic for my household. I was like, Grandma, that's not the Barbie with the full head of hair. That's just the Barbie with the ring of hair, and the rest is bald because it's from the dollar store.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. But what's interesting, if I reflect on that, is the feelings you start to have towards certain family members, depending on the kind of money you expect from them. Because like I knew some uncles worked in more prestigious jobs than others. Some people were in more financially stable positions than others. So you expect higher bills. And I reflect back, like, did I love them differently? Did I treat them differently? Like what was that expectation around the gifts you're getting from these relatives and the kind of relationship you had with them? And how did these two things interact, if they did? It's always interesting to think about that, because now you're carrying these values with you, whether conscious or not, and you're teaching your kids these values on some level. So it's interesting to reflect on what kind of holiday traditions you have, and what were these traditions based on? Are they inherited subconsciously? And like you said, the word consciousness is huge. Really practice conscious giving and really bring consciousness back into this equation, because family celebrations and holidays in general are about, it's meant to be a spiritual experience, and somehow we translated it into this hugely consumer behavior. And
it really takes all the fun out of it, because it puts so much pressure. And so one of the things I've been actively doing over the last couple of years is like renouncing that part of it. So I've literally said to, my family and my mom, like, no, like, let's not buy gifts for like aunt and uncle, like, or let's just do
Secret
Santa, where everyone gets one thing in a price range that's actually fun. To, like, find something for someone in a price range, and that's exciting, and you have to put thought into it, because otherwise it's, again, especially through the lens of climate change, it just feels like it's all this plastic. In the end of the day, especially with kids, like the toys, I see the kids, they'll like open something and like play with it for 2 seconds, and then it's like thrown over in the corner, and they're like back on the iPad. And it's like, this is not good, and this is the reality of what's going on.
This is exactly what I'm doing. All my closest friends and family, I'm doing a holiday brunch gathering, and we're doing Secret Santa, and we're actually doing Dirty Santa, which means it's not dirty in that way.
What?
you buy, you don't have the name of the person you're buying, and people like steal gifts throughout the day. That's what's dirty about it. It's a very innocent type of dirty.
I thought something so different.
that's what I thought,
Which
when
I
first
also
heard
wouldn't
it.
put past you. So I was like, anyways, back on track.
Yes. So essentially, you can have this idea for your gathering, and the theme I gave them a theme. It has to be a self-development gift, and I gave a reasonable price range.
Of course it does. At a SEALs party, it has to be a self-development gift. Oh my
God!
gosh.
But you can have so much fun with it. A candle somehow is a self-development gift.
It can be. Well,
Yeah, it
according
can
to a
be.
SEAL, the candle's for when you're budgeting. You light a candle and you put some incense, and it's supposed to
Yes,
be
your money
a lot
date.
easier.
It's so true.
So as January comes and we're all like riddled with anxiety, light the candle and
get the numbers on paper.
get the numbers on paper. So how do we, I mean, we've talked about this on episodes before, but if we do find ourselves tuning into this episode, all jokes aside, we're feeling anxious, it's overwhelming. And again, the world keeps changing.
Yeah.
So we're in a situation that just continues to unfold, and there's a lot of layers to it.
Yes.
So with that said, what kinds of tools, what kinds of tips, like what do we do?
Yeah.
If you're
So,
like me and you've got this
One
issue.
of the most important things to do is really be intentional about carving out self-care and me time for yourself. Like, I know it's gonna be, and now it's even COVID and the pandemic is ongoing, so I don't even know how busy your holidays are. There's a lot of talk about it not being as festive again, and people really celebrating in solitude.
And this is airing after that happened,
Yeah.
so we can only imagine what
I mean,
you've
in
gone
hindsight.
through. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. We're recording this podcast still ahead of the holidays, but realistically, it's really important to step back and just imagine the volume of everything you're dealing with, because this time of the year, usually in a normal year, excluding the pandemic, you're reflecting on the goals you've had for the year that passed, and if you're feeling short, there's this dread and guilt and shame associated with that plays a big role in how you wrap up your year. There's now the anxiety around the new goals, like what am I, like I just went on a vacation recently, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna come back ready with all my goals on a paper, I'm just gonna be refreshed, and I'm like, I wrote not even a single page while I was on vacation, because I was just really shutting out a lot of my emotional turbulences that I've been through, and I wasn't able to still sit down and write my goals. So there's anxiety around that too, like what does the new year hold in store for me? And the third thing, there's family dynamics. I mean, there's every family have its issues, no matter
But
how
things are amplified right now because
100%.
families are all on different parts of the spectrum in terms of how their jobs have been impacted, and
Yeah.
different lockdowns and rearing children.
yeah
And
opinions
and
about
opinions
what's
on
going
what
on.
everyone's thinking
Yeah.
and doing and how they behave, and it has been just so intense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that is a good message. And even if you've come through the holidays and you didn't give yourself some of that me time, which again, for so many people feels like, well, what even is that? Like, or how do
Yeah.
I even justify that?
So
you know?
me time is really important as a form of self-care, and there's different self-care practices that you can really practice. My favorite ones are grounding meditations. Like, there's different types of meditations. There's a lot of people who actually engage in visualization meditations around this time, because you're visualizing what you want your new year to be. And while that is good, visualization is happening here. And when there's anxiety's energy is like in the top part of your body, particularly around your chest, heart, and head area. That's why you feel dizzy. That's why you may feel fast heartbeat, shallow breath. So there's a lot of movement.
Racing mind.
Yeah, racing mind happening here. That's why my favorite type of meditations around this time of year actually do not involve visualization. They're grounding meditations. So
To bring you into your lower parts
yes,
of your body.
yes, exactly.
Okay.
Bringing
Yeah.
you into your legs, focusing on shifting energy. Breathing techniques can help. Qigong can help. There's different things that you can do, but really trying things to push things down towards the grounding centers of your body. So these are things you can explore, as well as obviously journaling. Each client I work with, I create a customized self-care toolbox is what I call it. And I'm like, what's in that toolbox that is something, that self-soothing activity that you do that you would enjoy, and it could be as simple as going for a walk, but with that intention that now I'm going to walk to take care of myself, to be with myself, to give myself that pleasure of time and experience or whatever.
For whatever it is that you want to do.
Yeah.
And I think even for me, like, because I have a lot of energy and I have a lot of anxious energy, and I'm constantly in this like productivity loop that I'm really trying to come out of. I feel like even for me, granting myself the opportunity to be on my own and even just like watch a show that I want to watch by myself with my little blanket quietly away, you know, is self-care sometimes.
It's all about
like,
intention.
It is. Yeah. And
even a
just being able
shower.
to
I mean,
do
you were
that.
going to shower anyway, but the showering with the intention that I'm carving this time for myself, and maybe indulging on maybe a bubble bath or whatever it may be.
Feeling the water on your skin and just concentrating on the warmth of that feeling, just even for a few minutes. And I know for anyone who's like a parent out there, it can be like you're locking yourself in there for 5 minutes to have your moment. And you can find these little moments. It is
two
true.
quick tips before we move into the goal setting section. One is called butterfly hug, and that's literally hugging yourself. Like, there's a lot of self-soothing. I know once you talked about like putting your arms
under the thing.
So it's similar. So you can do that,
or
you can do the butterfly hug, and that's literally like hugging yourself. It's very, very powerful, and it literally impacts the endorphins in your brains and ultimately the mood of what
There's
you're feeling.
There's also a little trick I learned that when you're feeling really triggered or overwhelmed with emotion or overwhelmed with anxiety, and always remember that the feelings that you're feeling when they peak, the peak can't last. So even if you count down from a peak, you know, when you're feeling at the peak of an anxiety and you feel like, I got to get out of here, I got to leave, like I'm dying or whatever the feeling is, that peak in your brain actually neurologically can't last for longer than a certain amount of time. It's the same way that like we can't keep a sprint pace on a long marathon. It just like the body doesn't work that way. So again, thinking about this idea that even when I'm in my peak, what can I do to service myself in the peak? Another technique is to put your thumb and your finger just right here, just kind of like above your heart space, and you tap one side to the other and just concentrate on the tapping. And this is just soothing and calming the brain. Actually, it's a really good technique for anxiety or when you feel overcome with emotion, or hugging a pillow can also be.
There's also tapping, like there's different types of tapping.
I'm so interested in that.
EFT, I think it's called. So
I tried another modality too that I'll tell you about later, but there is so many different techniques that sound, I remember when I feel anxious, hearing like breathing is like, ugh, like screw you. Like obviously you don't know what anxiety is, but the truth is that they do work. And the simplest things, you don't have to go out and spend a lot of money. You don't have to go, I'm not saying you shouldn't speak to someone or seek help, because you obviously should if you feel that you need that. But there are these little techniques that are of no cost that can help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree, because when I first started experiencing my anxiety and panic attacks, I thought I needed something really drastic to help me cope. And in reality, it was these simple techniques practiced consistently. That was the trick. It was proactive.
Thank you for sharing, because again, you're, you know, a therapist and a coach and someone who, you know, again, we have these impression of people like yourself that you're kind of perfect, like you're all put together. And thank you for being so vulnerable always and sharing that you too have had anxiety and panic, and so have I. And so I just like to normalize that and to see successful people that we look up to and then hear that they have experienced those things or even currently experiencing those things and working through them. It makes us all feel a little bit more connected and like it's doable for all of us, that we are all actually experiencing so much change as a society, as a world, all at once. And then couple that with holidays and family dynamics and, like you said, all the things. This is what the conscious economy is all about, is being honest about that and figuring out how we can nurture ourselves and our systems back to health so this doesn't have to remain that way.
Yeah.
Hold that thought. We have a quick word from our partners before going back to the episode. This podcast is brought to you by our sponsor, RBC Investies. Backed by expert human advisors, RBC Investies is a smart, online, automated investment service that allows you to invest with low effort and low cost.
Open your first RBC Investies account and pay no management fees for your first year.
Plus, start investing with as little as $100. Simply visit rbcinvesties.com/getinvesting and sign up using promo code AA407.
And now back to the episode.
I remember, so I was telling you recently, I went on vacation and I had an anxiety attack on my first day. And I thought like I was particularly more judgmental about it because I'm like on vacation. I'm supposed to be very happy and excited and like relaxed right now. It was a beautiful country, beautiful weather. So I couldn't really understand what was happening. And I remember like feeling so anxious and almost transitioning into a panic attack. But I grounded myself, and eventually throughout the night, and when I get anxiety, I actually completely lose my appetite. So even though I had not had lunch, I couldn't even eat. It was like dinner time at that point. And at one point I started feeling myself literally coming back into my body, and I turned to my husband and I'm like, oh, I'm back. And he was like, what? I said, I am back. I'm finally back. And I was like, listen, when I'm experiencing anxiety, it's like I literally disassociate from my body. I lose a sense of what's going on. Like it's really jarring. And having the ability to communicate your experience to those around you is crucial, because then you're communicating not just what you're going through, but what support can look like for you, and helping others around you understand how they can help you cope, because it's potentially jarring experience for them, especially if you transition into more severe cases, which around holiday can be very very common. So please take that time to just allow your emotions to be and not judge them, and at the same time be proactive in creating these rhythms and routines in your life to help you cope, so that you're not just reacting to things when happening, but preventing them to begin with.
And also interesting that you say that, you know, you're on vacation, you're like, I'm supposed to be relaxed, it's supposed to be great, and now it's coming up. But one other thing to remind people is that the timing of anxiety doesn't reflect necessarily what the current circumstance is. A lot of the times anxiety are things that we have kind of pushed down, not dealt with. We've been so busy, and now we finally relax. And all of a sudden the body goes, hey, you didn't deal with this. You didn't address this. You didn't. And the body's just doing its job.
Yes.
But when we don't have these regular moments where we can, and again, we can even be doing it and just not realize the extent of what's going on. And a lot of us are so conditioned to everyday chronic stress that we don't realize, and we almost are like, why am I having anxiety? Everything should be fine. And it's like, no, it's not fine. Sometimes it could even be what you witnessed on the news. You know, or something that a family member is going through.
That's what makes it worse, actually, when you're judging your experience and saying, I shouldn't be having anxiety right now, or like this is the worst time to have this, or why am I feeling this way, and just judging our emotions are essentially what escalates them. So just I know it sounds a little bit cheesy, but really approaching our emotions in a non-judgmental way and embracing them is key.
I love that you also mentioned, you know, you telling your partner and letting someone try and at least understand the experience, because that was always my biggest fear. I would tell no one because I was afraid that, but then I was also afraid people think I'm crazy. Like I just run out of a store or something, or like can't go on a bus, because that's how it expressed for me when I was younger. Like I couldn't go on public transit. I would start having like hyperventilate and feel like I have to get off, so I couldn't get to work, or I couldn't get to whatever if I had to rely on that means. And I remember being so afraid of what people would think, and like that made it so much worse. And so again, even if you're having a situation where something's coming up and you even don't know, there's a kind stranger maybe opening up, like, I'm having an experience. Sometimes people that you don't even know can hold space.
In the last year, we'll get into goal setting in a bit, but in the last year, I've been way more in touch with my emotion, particularly sadness and tears, than I've ever been in my life. I wouldn't say ever been, because as a child, I was very, very sensitive. And that's one of the reasons I actually have this part of me suppressed, because I was bullied for being extra sensitive. It was like, not cool. It's like I'm a Cancer, so emotions are very high for cancers or water signs in general. But I learned to like suppress my emotions and just show that very like tough face that I've got it together. And this year, like there's a lot of unfolding of emotions and all these layers. There's times where I was walking on the street where I would start crying and not even have a clue to why I'm crying. And this one time the stranger approached me and she said, I lost my brother recently. I sometimes cry on the street, and I'm very happy that you're crying on the street, because the worst thing you can do is not cry. And so I'm very happy you're letting it out. And I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
this was like a random stranger who literally said this, dropped this beautiful nugget, and kept going on her day, but really changed my day, that specific comment. And you know, we are kinder than like, we're living in a weird world, but humanity is meant to be like, we are kind people.
Connected,
We are
kind, and
connected. Exactly.
I
We
believe
are.
that is our true nature.
I do believe that too.
Yeah. And yeah, and it's really difficult for all of us to go through difficult times. We're not always showing up in our best selves. I know I'm not. And there's moments when I feel no compassion in my heart. I'm at a rock bottom place, and that's also okay. It's about not letting ourselves stay there.
Yeah.
And it's about not continuing to perpetuate that, but understand that it's par for the course in this human journey we're all on. And it's interesting that this whole episode has really been around anxiety and coping and managing, because again, you know, we talk about Bell Let's Talk, like mental health days. And, you know, we hear more and more corporate Canada embracing mental health and people talking about it, but there is still not really the conversational kind of support and tools and resources available. As much as we're kind of talking about it, there's still so much stigma.
There's still a lot of stigma.
There's still a lot of
Holy
stigma,
moly.
and that is intersectional, the stigma. So depending on your age, your income level, your role at work, all of these things can add a different intersectional layer to how it feels to actually go through mental health. But the thing is, just like our physical health, mental health is constantly changing and evolving. And just because you get sick one day doesn't mean you don't get better. And just because you may feel sick one day in the mind doesn't mean that you don't also get better. So I
had a client the other day who wanted to hire me for their mom, to support their mom through some financial shifts that are going on in her life. And so there's different terminologies I call myself. Like, I am a financial therapist. I'm a money mindset coach. Like, there's different terminologies that you can use to refer to the kind of work that I do. And his feedback was, you know, my mom would never see you if you call yourself a financial therapist. Like, can we just stick to the money mindset coach, or like something around coaching? Because like, she has a huge, she would think I'm almost insulting her if I recommend
from the word therapist.
Wow.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, this is an interesting perspective. Like, it's not like I've never heard of this before, but I never directly was told that. I've heard about it from a cultural context about people's stigmas, but I thought it was really, really interesting. And my invitation to you is to really recognize any gaps of support you have in your life, and to recognize what are some of the resistance you have around these things, whether it's therapy, whether it's counseling, whether it's coaching. Like, there's also resistance around all these different professional help, but to also recognize, like, we are our worst critic and we sabotage ourselves beyond what we can even possibly know. And sometimes it's because a good therapist and a good coach doesn't really tell you what to do. You're still the one who's empowered to create that real change in their life and create the life you truly desire. If people are doing their job properly in these helping professions, it's really to remind you of your own agency and to empower you with the resources and the tools you need to get that stuff figured out for yourself. And so you're still the one in charge in a lot of ways, and anybody who's not empowering you wouldn't be doing their job properly.
Exactly. No, I think that that's such a powerful note to end off on. I know that this was probably a heavy topic, but I hope that you've been able to gain some resources out of it and at least feel comforted by the fact that everyone is going through layers right now, and it's normal and you're okay. So if you want to learn more about any of this work, or more to maybe book something with Asil, please do reach out. We're available at consciouseconomics.ca, and we're so happy to continue to co-create the new economy radically with love. So thank you, and see you again next week.
Bye.
This podcast is brought to you by CPP Investments. At CPP Investments, they never lose sight of the long term. They invest the Canadian Pension Plan Fund to help provide financial security for generations of Canadians.
They diversify the CPP fund across geographies and asset classes to access the best investment opportunities and generate sustainable long-term returns. The fund is now more than $400 billion.
To learn more about their investment performance for Canadians, visit cppinvestments.com.